the last panel of the day before we go to the party tonight at 7:30 at the Embassy of Angola at the Afro Berlin party. After that, you can register at the desk over there and join and network tonight there. But the next panel is about, well, having a good idea, telling a good story is great. Having the best script, the most talented people, and the most visionary director, that helps, but that doesn't help or is not a guarantee that you'll be very successful. So you need to sell the brand and the story, and how to sell all that, how to market that. We will talk about with the next panel, and I'd like to welcome the film marketing expert, founder and FarSide Moon Media from Nigeria, Ozzy Agu. He's an actor as well. Where's Ozzy? Oh, very good. Okay. And the producer and founder of Infilmpact from Germany and Australia, Karl Hillbric. Karl is coming. So where's the applause for Karl? And the director of Global Communications, Film Commissioner, the Bahamas Ministry of Tourism, Clarence Rolle. Clarence, here you are. Very good. And the host of this panel is a marketing and branding expert, founder from VitaminBlack in Germany in Haiti, Tithey Schulz. Herzlich willkommen, and please welcome our host for the last panel of the day.
Awesome. Okay, good idea. Yeah.
Hello, hello, hello. Thank you for the warm welcome and introduction, Jared, and welcome everybody to this panel talk about the continuous evolution of film and the crucial role of promotion. As Jared said, my name is Tithey Schulz. I'm born and raised in Germany to a German mother and a Haitian father, and my background is in marketing. But it's not about me tonight. It's about our panelists over here and about marketing. So I would like to start with you, Karl. Maybe you can give us an introduction about yourself and how you ended up in the film industry.
No, great, thanks. Yeah, look, there we are, dropping everything. I relate to one of the questions from one of your previous panels there, and that my background was not actually in film and entertainment. It was in business development, in IT and digital transformation, which unwittingly has turned out to be quite a benefit for working in promotion, advertising and marketing in film. So yeah, coming to Germany, I was looking for new opportunities, new horizons, like many of us do when we're thinking about our career, and it was COVID, and I'm having all these romantic ideas again about my career and what it could be. And in short, I entered a company and helped them set up their post-production business in localisation, so voiceover, subtitles and dubbing. And that was what I call my apprenticeship or traineeship into the film business, which opened that up, and that was what the pivot was. But the opportunity came in COVID, and I reached out to a writer-director friend of mine and said, look, I don't know what I want to be when I grow up. Can we talk about that? And 3 hours later, I signed an executive producer contract with her to help her fund her film.
And what is one of the recent projects you're particularly proud of? Yes.
Absolutely. So, look, when we're looking at the marketing or promotion of film or building that base around a project, I think it's critical to really put some idea behind what the genre is, if it is a genre, what the themes of your project is, your film, series or documentary, and look for a truth that resonates with funders, brands, etc. And more importantly, look for your advocates. Look for advocates that will be part of your team. So a good example would be actually my current short scripted Ukrainian film, which is based on a Ukrainian woman's true story of how she survived the bombings of 2022 and and that whole Russian terrorism thing. And in short, I was looking at the project, and as this is quite, it's in the popular culture, it's in news, it's in media, I realised that I needed to, one, I needed to market it well, two, I needed to get somebody else to pay for it, and then three, I needed to put points 1 and 2 at the back end of that, and then think about the third in the first place, which is, how do I solve somebody else's business problems, wants or needs so that I can get my premieres marketed and funded? And the strategy I went about with that was to, knowing it was a Ukrainian narrative, I then engaged conflict and security analysts to understand what they were looking at. I followed them on social media, I watched them in the news and read and so on. So I gained an idea about the sort of thing that the message or the impression they were trying to make on this discourse. And so I approached them and offered them an opportunity to be on a panel and to speak into that situation. I then went to diplomatic missions and public sector organisations and said that I can get these people, or I'm in contact with them discussing this concept, and it was them that would then fund the event. The event would enable the analysts to get there, and then by helping these two other groups get what they wanted, I was able to get my premieres funded, marketing dollars courtesy of these organisations. So the upshot of that is think about your clients' customers. You know, what can I do here? And more importantly, what can I do? How can I solve a number of other people's problems in order to be able to solve my own problem, which is get free marketing and an event location. So this has worked very well. In Berlin, we had the leading retired US General, Lieutenant Ben Hodges, that was able to bring in the funds to pay for the event, and in kind, because we don't need the cash. And then with that, the format was proven, and an invitation came from the European Parliament, and so it premiered in the European Parliament last month. Same thing's about to take place in London. So, in short, I consider myself, quite fortunate to have been able to find this. But this same principle applies across any project you could think of. Look for the truth in your content, and then see where you can find advocates for it.
I mean, it seems like a quite specific approach, and I mean, it's also a very challenging topic to market in the first place. But to break it down a little bit, so you really went into research, identified key players within that territory basically, and then organized a panel talk and brought people in. You just briefly mentioned how that could translate also to other films, but maybe to elaborate a little bit on that, like how would that strategy, like how would you map out that strategy for basically another topic, for example?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, the strategy itself could be used across any matter of project, content or type. And so literally it comes down to I spend, at least 15 to 20 minutes at the start of the day building my contact base on LinkedIn, as an example. Soft touch, using social media marketing techniques on LinkedIn, like following somebody, liking them, being very clear about why you're in touch with them, in contact with them. So building that base before you actually, then make that approach. And so very successfully you can get past those usual barriers of, a assistant that won't pass a message or a phone call or what have you. You're often able to reach these influencers, these brands, these leading public figures through that sort of platform. So Instagram, Twitter, TikTok, that's for reaching our consumers.
X.
Exactly, X, that's right. And we can use those to reach our ultimately our customers. But in terms of finding our business partners, they're not there. They're on platforms like LinkedIn or other specific social media. So if we take that another example, I'm producing a French drama comedy. It's a road trip, and And with this example, I've engaged a automaker because one of the characters in this film will be the car, And so authentically, I've now got a brand placement opportunity, which is very powerful to a tier 2 or tier 3 brand. Equally, we're going to need some funds and support and marketing, and so because this story ultimately is about 3 daughters that need to travel together to reach Zurich to see their mother before she takes euthanasia, we're then contacting institutes and foundations that align with that topic, as an example. So principally, build your contact base, politely stalk your influencers, and then find those that will want to host them or will want an association to these influencers or brand figures or whoever they are. And then once you've put those 2 together, you can get what you want. Solve other people's problems first.
Yeah, I think very tangible advice also with LinkedIn and like really putting in the work every day. Maybe to close up on that recent project also, you just mentioned you premiered at the European Parliament, and the film is also going to be shown in the UK soon. So how did the distribution of the film develop also throughout the strategies that you applied already, and how is it looking now, and where is the film going to be shown? And
absolutely. So look, the truth in this matter is it's because we're effectively bootstrapping this by using or by delivering other organisations and people, solving their business problems. It is elongated. So in a sense, I'm creating my own festival run or series of private screenings. So where it's up to right now is that we're now at a point where some sales agents and distributors are starting to go, okay, he's got some very impressive people attached to what he's doing. He's starting to get some media out of this. Now the conversations are starting. So it can be a bit slower. And in my case, rounding up world leading experts is like herding cats. A very difficult exercise. So in short, we haven't reached distribution yet, but we haven't also determined our full distribution strategy. And the truth is, I'm actually thinking this might actually be a free ad-supported television play or a fast play.
Okay, thank you. Clarence, welcome.
Thank you.
I heard you had a bit of a difficult arrival here. I hope you're well.
Yes, it was difficult. I won't bore everybody with the story, but let's just say due to a mishap with my airline, I had to leave a lot of money in Berlin today by shopping.
Okay, well, that's not always too bad, but maybe you can also tell us a little bit about yourself and how you ended up in the film industry, where you're from, and basically what you do today.
Sure. So I was born and raised in the Bahamas. I spent a short time in the United States at university, but I think my story is similar to a lot of people who end up in the film industry, and it's just that I was a dreamer as a kid. I loved stories. I loved immersing myself in stories that I saw growing up on television or in a theater. And so as I grew, it just came out of me where I wanted to create worlds. I wanted to create people who inhabit those worlds. And so I think of myself really as a writer more than anything else. And in my 20s, I wrote a few screenplays, and in the Bahamas at the time, there was pretty much no one really doing independent films. And so I was looking for someone to make these things come alive. I wanted to see them on the screen, and looked and looked and looked, didn't find anything. And so out of just being essential, it was something that I wanted to see. So I had to become a director, a producer, as well as a writer, and then I just produced my own screenplays, called in some friends, and they helped me out. We all made it happen, worked together as a team, and it kind of started a whole lot happening in the Bahamas, because then other people came along and they did those things a lot better than me. And, after making my films, I realized then that if people are going to see these, I have to get the word out. So I became a marketing person as well. And so, it was just something that was born of something that was inside me to begin with.
And what are some recent projects you're particularly proud of and that you've worked on?
So yeah, sure. So there will be this year the latest Tyler Perry film that will be out. That was filmed in part in the Bahamas, and that's going to be released on Netflix. Shortly before that, there's a Atlanta-based television show called Johnson that I worked with, and they had me to help them with some marketing. They asked me to do some, a lot of it was behind-the-scenes footage, interviews, and then we did a few shows together. For example, the Essence Film Festival, because a lot of their audience really would appreciate what they created. And so I traveled around a bit with them to help them promote that. They actually did 3 30-minute episodes of their latest season in the Bahamas. And before that, going way back, my second film is called Crazy Love, and it's where I learned how to do things for myself, and really social media was the thing with that. Just using cast, using crew to kind of use their personalities, their strengths, and their interests to build an audience to see that film.
Maybe also to be a bit more precise in that matter, if you look at Johnson, for example, that you mentioned, the show in Atlanta, like what were some of the marketing strategies that you applied? Because, I mean, marketing is such a broad thing.
Yeah, so a part of what they want to do was they kind of have a set audience inside the United States, so bringing in new audiences from the Caribbean. And so that had to do with a lot of what we have in the Bahamas. The finale, I hope it's not a spoiler for anyone, but the finale of their last episode in the Bahamas incorporates the biggest festival that we have in the Bahamas called John Canoe. And so we had some of the biggest John Canoe artists appear in the film, and it's a beautiful, colorful kind of a carnival that kind of climaxes the season. And so having some of those personalities featured in social media and the behind-the-scenes footage was something that I hope was helpful to them, as we kind of helped them put that together. And it not only helped their show, but, you know, as a part of the Ministry of Tourism, which my Bahamas Film Commission comes under, you know, it also helps to expose the world to the culture of the Bahamas, which is John Canoe. So while helping them, we were also helping, you know, our own organization as well.
Okay, understood. So in that matter, you basically work with influential people from the Bahamas to draw attention on the show as well that was shot there.
Yes, and I think I'm going to endorse something that was said earlier. It's really about finding these strategic alliances, finding partnerships, and when you have mutual goals that align, you know, you find ways to help each other out. So one of the things we did recently with the Bahamas Film Commission is that we did a memorandum of understanding with the Miami-Dade Film Commission in South Florida. And we have a lot of things in common. We're very close to each other. You can get from the Bahamas to Miami, or Miami to the Bahamas in about 45 minutes by plane, right? And so even though we're in two different countries, you know, we're very close in that way. The people are similar. There are kind of business endeavors that are the same. And so they had some goals, we had some goals, they aligned, and so we did a memorandum of understanding. And so, for instance, we do a whole lot of trade shows. So rather than just talking about promoting an individual film, you can promote a whole film country, a whole film region. And so one of the things we do is we split up and we kind of take different film shows and we talk about each other and what's available in each jurisdiction. So that's a part of our memorandum. And it helps us because their budget team just happens to be a little bit bigger than ours, you know, and so they have a great reach. So they're reaching people we cannot, we're reaching people they cannot. And so it's just about, you know, thinking properly about who are the people who you can pull in, and sometimes those are corporations. As was said earlier about product placement, and so these are the things that are just amazing. We're also doing that with individual films and television shows. So 2 years ago, the Apple series Bad Monkey was filmed, in part in the Bahamas, in part in South Florida, Miami-Dade. And so people were kind of exposed to some of the Bahamian culture as well, because so much of the story talked about one of our islands, Andros. And so it's another example of the type of collaborations that kind of gets two birds with one stone.
Yeah, you both put emphasis on building strong alliances, and
Absolutely.
yeah, and I guess that's something that's probably been out there for a long time, and in many ways. But what are maybe, question to both of you, some recent trends that you see in film promotion and film marketing that maybe you also have applied or have taken advantage of?
Yeah, certainly. So, impact as an activity or as a focus has become a critical opportunity. We're now seeing impact in genre, impact-orientated genre, which is really fascinating, and that in itself extends and opens up new markets and reaches new people. I spend a lot of time reaching out and connect with brands and getting to know their CSR values, which is their corporate and social responsibility values. And sometimes it's not a case that you can ever tap into those funds, but you can get clarity around what they're wanting to achieve, where, how and what. And so this was very effective, for instance, in a recent production where I attached Dell, Audi and Lacoste. Dell was glad to have that sort of association. They want to present themselves as being a technology company that appears in content that supports BIPOC and the like, and at the same time Audi were looking for that opportunity to promote a more sustainable vehicle. So it is about looking at your brand partners as well when you're building up and getting to know them. That's a bit of a change. Product placement over the years has been something that we've all looked at and thought we can fund a film out of it. The reality is you can't, but you can do a lot with it in terms of cost scrubbing and also with regard to marketing and alike. But to get to the crux of this, using low-cost digital tools is a very effective way of starting that process early. I don't think it can give you the same big push that you can get with a trade marketing campaign off the back of a theatrical release, but it incrementally can help you there. And so one transition we saw with the COVID crisis, that was the profit centre for any film or production was really then going to be through distribution, through a streamer or whatever it was, because the cinemas had shut down. This was actually fascinating because the funding that was typically going into trade marketing for film distribution was also what was pushing along a film once it was past its theatrical release, whether that was 3, 6, weeks, whatever it happened to be at the time. And so now that it's not there, there's an impost or a requirement really from the producers to really, clue up and fill that gap, And that's a significant change because the typical independent filmmaker puts in, between 1% and 5% of their budget into promotion and advertising if they're lucky. And they've usually depended on that distribution activity and trade marketing activity for theatrical release to carry them along. So it really is quite important to consider that, particularly when you're going to be wanting to go back to your investors, whoever they are, and say you've delivered that type of return. So yeah, I'm a big fan of harnessing those tools for building communities and also looking for harmonious brand integrations.
Yeah, I think one of the interesting things that I've noticed is that big corporations are not doing everything from within. They're actually reaching out to the creative community and they are enlisting their help to reach audiences. And so there are lots of competitions out there. I know one of the examples not too long ago was the sequel for The Nun, where the studio had a competition. They said, look, we want to do a TikTok campaign. And they put the parameters out there, it's got to have these elements in it. And you've got to stay away from these things. And if we pick you, this is going to be your contract. And so they're putting it out there. And I think it's a really smart thing because they get back things that they never expected. And they're asking the people who probably are closer to their audiences, what's going to pull my audience in? They're getting some very interesting things, and then they get to pick and choose. And so I think that's an interesting trend, sort of putting this out to tender, and then picking what are the things that we think, yeah, that's going to work, that's going to be great, and that's going to pull our audience in. And I think it's something that's very effective, and they're going to be using these relatively inexpensive platforms and social media and so forth to do it.
It's interesting how we're now seeing the tail end of organically occurring viral events on social media, though. Now you can still get it with TikTok, but not much others, not many else.
Yeah, I guess the amount of people you can reach through TikTok with almost no budget is quite incredible. And you touched on LinkedIn before. Now, Clarence, you spoke about TikTok. And in general, there was like some really successful campaigns in the past years of like big films. If you look at like Barbie or Oppenheimer, that had like a lot of marketing budget in there. But what do you think about if there's like more of an independent film? What are things or ways on how to use social media to be successful when they don't have those huge budgets? Is there any maybe past examples that you've witnessed of films that did it like really good, or do you have any strategies yourself on how to effectively use those tools?
Yeah, so when you don't have those big budgets, then it really becomes critical, right, to be creative and to use what's at hand, things that don't require that kind of money. And I think we do have examples of projects that have done that and done that very well. They pull an audience in. I can think way back to Sam Jackson's Snakes on the Plane. That was a huge phenomenon of how to use social media and low-budget platforms to get an audience, and the audience was huge. And so I think you're only going to see people doing that better and better because it is effective. And it's good when you have things like that can level a playing field, right? Because, that means then that when you do small productions in your country or town, whatever the case may be, in some ways you do have the ability to pull an audience. This is what we did, I mentioned earlier, with Crazy Love. And in the Bahamas at the time when we did this, only Hollywood films were shown at our local cinema. And after we did our social media campaign and used some free stuff, you get the daily papers to write about you and so forth, we actually held a record for a while of the longest running production in the Bahamas because at first the cinema house just gave us a shot just because. But when they saw that seats were filled, okay, you get another week, and then you get another week, So you have to use these things to your advantage.
I also see it's critical to have a broader view of those digital tools that are available to you. So we've mentioned a couple of names in social media, but there are complementary tools, Chrome plugins, all these sorts of things that help you with, automating some of those fairly menial tasks that you can then, amplify. So, there's now even AI social media assistants, as an example, 40 euros a month, and you're able to, automate, a lot of that sort of, donkey type work, basic work. So educate yourself. If you've got a project that you need to think smart rather than expensive about, then have a broader view. Maybe even do a short course on digital marketing, to be completely frank.
Yeah, I mean, time was running fast. We are almost over already, and there's, I mean, I think especially in this topic, so many more interesting things that we could dive into. Especially you just touchy briefed on like Chrome extensions or specific tools that are helpful. But I would also like to give the opportunity to the audience to raise some questions, because I think marketing and promotion is always a very crucial topic. So if there's any questions in the audience, now is your time to ask.
We must have done a good job.
I think. Oh, thanks. Yeah.
Who are you?
I'm Samuel Sangwa. I work as Africa Regional Director for a platform called CISAC, which is the umbrella organization for corporate societies in Africa. So tomorrow I'll be engaging the audience on the subject of AI, but that's not the question. My question will be more, we are seeing today a lot of discussion about gender, inclusivity, and the like, and sometimes for the brand, they may want to push a certain message at some point, and I think there is this kind of tension between the producer, the creators, and the need to market, because marketing is also extending kind of an idea, a way of living, a way of thinking. How do you look at this very discussion about you approach, let's say, by a brand which try to push a certain idea of who we need to be, you know, and again, you know the subject matter. There is this kind of power game where you want my money, and this is the message you want. I want you to push there, and this can really be a broad. Can be talking about, let's say, things like about food, you know, beverages in the movies, or this is the way you need to dress, or this is how you need to look like. So how do you reconcile also this type of subject matter when you are engaging in marketing?
I'll go to that one. Yeah. Thank you for the question. For me, I've encountered a lot of this actually, and I think when you are engaging brands, food, drink, whatever they might be, you're right. You do get that. You can get that sort of pressure. It does happen. When I engage, I have a structured engagement, which is I put together a brand workshop, and that's where we workshop what themes they're trying to achieve and so on and so forth. It also acts as an opportunity to, I guess, normalise what's possible, because as much as I love putting brands in my productions, the reality is that there are good laws in place that protect the consumer from being oversaturated or, you know, and the like. And so there has to be an activity of setting expectations around that. Now, it is further segmented with global brands that, believe it or not, have actually improved in how they behave in this way. It tends to be some of the more regional brands that will struggle in this area. But I use workshops, a clear engagement, and then ultimately the way I position it with the brands is along the lines of, we'll make this work in the context of laws and regulations. The idea is that we will make it harmonious. And so I've coined my own term, harmonious product placement, which is making it more subtle, you know, making it more effective. So sometimes it's good when you're dealing with these brands to think, hang on, let's stop the conversation here. Let's go to how a certain Dutch beer brand will market. And if we look at, say, the Bond franchise, they use a likeness placement. So you never actually see the brand. So sometimes it's useful to talk to the bigger players and say, hey, let's take a note out of their book as they're doing it effectively. It's legal, and at the same time, you know, you're then able to avoid those difficult and, you know, unpleasant conversations. But it's a technique I've used.
Yeah, I would say that's an age-old question, Samuel, and it might come down to, in a lot of cases, you know, what's your goal? Is your goal to be commercial, or is your goal to really be an artist who stands for certain things? You know, so sometimes you'll have to pick between them. Hopefully they get to harmonize, because you will be able to negotiate with the brand and say, you know, let's give and take here and there. But essentially it might just come down to that, you know. But I think the thing is, there are enough platforms, enough tools are there today for you to be able to stand and say, you know, I'm going to forego the relatively easy money to be able to make the film I want to make, or to have the product that I want to put out there, to make the statement that I want to say, and then use those platforms and those tools to find your audience for your project. I mean, it might not be destined to be a blockbuster, and maybe you become what they call a cult classic. It would be authentic.
What a beautiful statement to end this panel conversation. Please give a big round of applause for Clarence and Karl. Thank you very much for attending, and I hope I see you all at the after party, and have a good evening.